let me tell you about one of the most insane business stories you will ever hear. It's the story of WeWork, a tale of just obscene wealth, a founder who saw himself as a prophet, and a valuation that was so huge it almost felt like a fantasy. So, at its absolute peak, WeWork was valued at an incredible $47 billion. Now, to put that in perspective, that's more than giants like Ford or FedEx. For a moment there, it was one of the most valuable private companies on the entire planet. And then, poof, it was gone. The company that literally promised to change the world spiraled into bankruptcy. And get this, it wiped out over $40 billion of value in just a few months. So you have to ask, how does that even happen? How does a company fly that close to the sun only to just completely implode? Well, the whole thing starts with a very, very good salesman. Okay, so let's start at the beginning with the founder, Adam Neumann. This is a guy who moves to New York in 2001 with one simple goal. He wanted to get filthy rich. And his path to WeWork is paved with some, let's just say, interesting business ideas. So before WeWork, there were these collapsible high heels that almost sliced people's fingers off. That was one idea. Then there was crawlers, baby clothes with knee pads already built in. But here's the thing you need to understand. Even with ideas that were kind of duds, Neumann was a phenomenal salesman. I mean, here's this 6'5", childless man passionately selling baby onesies at trade shows. The business didn't really go anywhere, but it was the perfect training ground for his real talent, selling a vision. His next shot, a company called Green Desk, was actually a huge hit. The model was just brilliant in its simplicity. He and his partner, Miguel McKelvey, would find an empty office floor, convince the landlord to pay for all the renovations, then they'd rent out desks to little startups and split the profits with the landlord. Almost zero risk, just steady, easy income. But a safe, profitable business making millions, that just wasn't enough for Adam. He wanted billions. So he sells his share of Green Desk and goes all in on this much, much riskier idea. Instead of partnering with landlords, he would sign these massive long-term leases himself, taking on all the financial risk. And this locked the company into billions in rent, whether the desks were full or not. And this is the most important part. He decided this was not a real estate business. Oh no, this was a world-changing tech company. And this right here is where the story really takes off. See, Neumann's genius wasn't really leasing office space. It was in spinning a story so powerful that it turned a boring property company into what felt like this global movement. He called WeWork the world's first physical social network. Now, this wasn't just some clever marketing slogan. It was a hardcore financial strategy. Adam knew that tech companies get valued at like 20 times their revenue, while boring real estate companies are stuck at maybe 2 to 5 times. So in every single pitch, he just hammered it home. We are not a real estate company. We are a tech company. And you know what? It totally worked. The story caught fire. By 2014, with big-time investors like JP Morgan jumping in, WeWork hit a valuation of $1.5 billion. It was officially a unicorn. Then, the man who poured rocket fuel on this whole thing showed up, Masayoshi Son of SoftBank. Get this. After just a 12-minute tour of a WeWork office, Son sketches out a deal right there in the back of his car to invest $4.4 billion. That one meeting sent the valuation skyrocketing to $20 billion. But Masa wasn't finished. Not even close. He soon proposed another, even bigger investment. And this deal would value the company at an absolutely astronomical $47 billion. Just like that, it was one of the most valuable private companies in the world. But it was the advice that Masa gave Adam that really sealed WeWork's fate. He told him he wasn't being crazy enough. He said to make his plans 10 times bigger. I mean, in that era of growth at all costs venture capital, this was the ultimate green light for Neumann to just completely throw caution to the wind and go wild. So the company's valuation is soaring into the stratosphere, right? But back on planet Earth, a very different story was playing out. That powerful narrative was starting to drift pretty far away from a very grim financial reality. I mean, look at the two sides. On one side, you had the hype, Adam talking about elevating the world's consciousness. On the other side, reality. The company lost almost $2 billion in a single year. They claimed to be a tech company, but there was no real tech to speak of. And the whole ecosystem of wee businesses, well, that included buying a company that makes wave pools for surfers. I'm not kidding. And the culture was just built on total excess. When investors would visit, employees were told to activate the space, which was basically code for throw a massive party right now. There were these mandatory, multi-million-dollar summer camp festivals for everyone. The company bought a private jet for $63 million. And Neumann's ambitions? Well, they grew to include solving world hunger and, building a WeWork on Mars. Now, for years, all this crazy stuff was hidden behind the walls of a private company. But in 2019, WeWork decided to go public, and that meant it had to open its books and reveal everything to the world. This, my friends, was the beginning of the end. The catalyst for the entire collapse was a single document, the S-1 filing. It's this mandatory paperwork for any company going public, and usually it's a super dry financial guide for investors. WeWork's S-1, however, was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. The S-1 revealed some, let's call it, creative accounting. To hide its staggering losses, WeWork just invented its own financial metric, Adjusted EBITDA. Now, EBITDA is a real thing, a standard way to measure profit. But WeWork's special version just excluded huge costs like marketing and design. With this magic formula, a $933 million loss was somehow presented as a $233 million profit. And the bombshells just kept coming. It turned out Neumann was leasing buildings he personally owned back to his own company. He literally trademarked the word "we" and then charged his own company almost $6 million to use it. The filing began with a dedication to the energy of we and said his wife would pick his successor if he died. The market reaction was brutal. The whole thing became a punchline. The backlash was just immediate and immense. The IPO was pulled, the valuation completely cratered, and in all the chaos that followed, the true cost of this spectacular failure became painfully clear. Adam Neumann was forced out as CEO, but he did not leave empty-handed, not by a long shot. His exit package, which included a consulting fee, a massive loan, and the right to sell his stock, was worth approximately $1 billion. And here is the final tragic twist. While the founder walked away a billionaire, over 2,400 employees were laid off. These were the people who had worked insane hours, believing they were part of this world-changing family. Their stock options, which they were told would make them millionaires, were suddenly completely worthless. The WeWork saga is just such a wild ride. It's a huge cautionary tale about hype, charisma, and the real dangers of believing your own story a little too much. But it leaves us with this one fascinating question. In a world driven by vision and narrative, when a story is this good, do the numbers even matter?